Cam Hayward says he's not going on a darkness retreat to recruit Aaron Rodgers. Now, I think it's funny that he said it. It doesn't bother me. But I always have to wonder at the end of the day, is it politically motivated? Is Cam annoyed and not really care for Aaron Rodgers because Aaron Rodgers is labeled a conservative? Well, Cam, I have bad news for you. The best chance to go deep in the playoffs this year and win a Super Bowl is with Aaron Rodgers, whether you like that or not, whether you like his politics or not. He threw for 4,000 yards. He threw for 28 touchdowns. He played for the worst team in the NFL with the worst offensive coordinator in the history of the NFL. And Aaron Rodgers had better numbers than Josh Allen. So the Pittsburgh Steelers need Aaron Rodgers. And everybody needs to hold on a second. Let's just hold on a minute. Let's say hypothetically Aaron Rodgers doesn't sign with the Pittsburgh Steelers. It doesn't change anything. They have Mason Rudolph signed just in case. The Steelers and Mike Tomlin and Art Rooney are fully comfortable with starting Mason Rudolph the entire year. Would they like a better quarterback? Would they like a franchise? Of course. But they're super comfortable starting Mason Rudolph. So what does it change? What is the rush to make Aaron Rodgers make up his mind? It doesn't change anything. Does anybody ever stop and give themselves a timeout like a child and say to themselves, well, maybe the Pittsburgh Steelers told Aaron Rodgers, we'll give you a week to make up your mind. We'll let you think about it. We don't want you here unless you're fully committed and want to play. We'll give you, 7 days, 5 days. Has it crossed anybody's mind that in a business deal with somebody like Aaron Rodgers, a veteran that's been around for 100 years, that maybe the Steelers themselves told Aaron Rodgers, like, hey, take your time. We want you fully committed. We want you to make the right decision. We're going to give you a week to think about it. Did that ever cross anybody's mind? Obviously not, because of the way that all the Steelers fans and some of the Steelers players are acting. So let's jump in and see what Cam had to say.
Called you and we're like, we need you to follow him into the darkness for a couple days. He says if you come down there with him, he's signing. Are you going to be off the grid for a little bit, go to the darkness and try to get this guy? We need you. You're our best recruiter. I'm about to get to Darius Slay, and it sounds like you recruited him too. So we need you to start recruiting. Get that NIL bag out like you did at Ohio State.
I ain't doing that or darkness retreat. I don't need any of that crap. Like, either you want to be a Pittsburgh Steeler or you don't. That's simple. That's the pitch. Like, if you want me to recruit, that's the recruiting pitch. Pittsburgh Steelers. If you want to be part of it, so be it. If you don't, no skin on my back.
So if they called you and were like, we need you to...
Now, the interviewer said, if it was guaranteed that Aaron Rodgers would sign, if they sent you down, would you still recruit him? And Cam said, I'm not getting involved with that. So from that standpoint, if I'm Cam Hayward in my 15th year and I'm trying to win a Super Bowl or go deep in the playoffs, everybody knows that Aaron Rodgers is the only hope at this point to go deep into the playoffs or make a Super Bowl. And Cam gets presented with that question. And he's like, I don't want to be part of that. So wait a minute. The question was, if it was guaranteed, if you recruited him, that he would say yes, would you go? And he's like, no. So this makes me believe it's political. This makes me believe that it's personal. Because let's weigh our two options. Mason Rudolph, Aaron Rodgers. I take Aaron Rodgers over any day of the week. It's a profession based on performance. It's not based on if we like you, if you're a nice guy. Troy Polamalu says this all the time. They only love me because I was a great football player, not a nice person. And that's true. That's one of the greatest things about football. With the stats, there's no gray area. Either you're great, you're good, or you suck. That's really the three categories that you could fit in. So, is Cam saying this for all the wrong reasons? Because Aaron Rodgers can play. The guy threw for over 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 picks. And remember one thing. In the beginning of the season, Aaron Rodgers was upset with the Jets. He went on TV. He said, a lot of our team's not on the same page. You got guys doing whatever they want. Some of those picks are not his fault. He didn't get Devontae Adams till late in the season, or later on in the season, I should say. So, I hear Steelers fans continuously say, we don't effing want Rodgers. Well, then you must want to go, 8-9 for the season. 11. If Mason Rudolph is the quarterback, the best year you're going to get is 11-6, and somewhat into the playoffs. I don't think he can outduel these other quarterbacks. Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes, CJ Stroud. Who can outduel them? If you had to take one guy to beat those quarterbacks in a playoff game or the Super Bowl, if you had to pick Mason Rudolph or a 42-year-old Aaron Rodgers, which guy are you going to go with based on last year's performances? Mason Rudolph had like 5 losses in a row for the Tennessee Titans. I mean, I know the Titans are horrible, so I'm going to cut them some slack in a break. The last time that Mason Rudolph was in a Steelers uniform, the playoff game against the Bills, he played great. The Steelers just didn't do enough to win. They didn't have TJ Watt either. It didn't help. But all this anti-Rodgers criticism and hate and we don't want him, it's just a bunch of nonsense, because if it was strictly off performance-based that you wanted to sign him, every Steeler fan in the world would be saying, sign Aaron Rodgers up now. There hasn't been a huge drop-off in his production. So this narrative, like, people just repeat lies on social media. They hear one guy say it, Aaron Rodgers is old and washed up, and that's what gets repeated by the players, by the media, by the fans. Then you actually look at Aaron Rodgers' stats, and you're like, wow, he's far from being washed up. This is the NFL. The best athletes in the world play here. If you can't play, it'll be like a bunch of predators just taking advantage of you left and right. Seems to me that Aaron Rodgers is still a predator, threw for a lot of yards and a lot of touchdowns. Josina Anderson also reported, one league source told me earlier today, that the Steelers feel like they're getting closer on their quarterback situation. In their mind, that optimism pertained to Aaron Rodgers. Did you ever think, like I said before, did you ever think all along the Steelers give him a certain amount of time to decide? If they were like, hey, 6 days from now, you got to give us an answer. But that would never cross anybody's mind. That would never cross Steelers fans' minds and the players, because they're too busy acting like 4-year-olds in a toy store with no patience. Again, of course the Steelers want Aaron Rodgers, but if he doesn't sign, it doesn't change anything, because there's no quarterbacks left on the market. So Mike Tomlin and Omar Khan definitely told Aaron Rodgers, like, hey, take your time. We want you fully committed. God. Obviously, the Steelers signed Isaiah Loudermilk. Everybody knows at this point that he got a 1-year deal. Good plug-and-play player. Brings his lunchbox to work every day. I have no complaints. Juan Thornhill was also signed from the Cleveland Browns. Brings a lot of value. He plays in the slot extra well from what I have heard. So he's not just a safety. These are the nuts and bolts types players that step into the game, make the most out of their opportunities, and make your team better. Fine, they're not the big splashes that you want to hear about, not the biggest names, but these types of signings is what helps you win Super Bowls, helps you win playoff games. You're only as strong as your weakest link. Pittsburgh Steelers also signed a Bradley Cooper lookalike for a 2-year deal. Ben Skowronek, great blocker on the perimeter, another nuts and bolts type player. Can't complain about the signing whatsoever. Made the most of his opportunities every time he steps on the field. Team first guy. Billy Miller was also re-signed. I think he got a 1-year deal. These are the type of players that I like to see. Non-drama, non-maintenance players. The nuts and bolts of your team. The nuts and bolts of every NFL team. I believe that the Steelers got better in free agency. Obviously, the quarterback situation is not completely settled, but I'm more than comfortable going into the season with Mason Rudolph. And if Aaron Rodgers signs, it's going to be great. It's not going to be a good year. It's going to be a great year. So let's just hope that Aaron Rodgers gets signed sooner than later. But I truly believe with all my heart, 1,000%, that the Steelers gave Aaron Rodgers all this time to make up his mind. And I believe eventually that'll all come out. And the fan base and the players should all be giving Aaron Rodgers a big apology, which I'm sure he will never get. And he won't get that apology for one reason, because he's labeled a Trump supporter.